I always like to preface this talk by saying I am by no means an AI expert, if those even exist. Uh, I am an OD practitioner and leadership coach who's really curious about how we can be more effective in the work that we do as OD practitioners, and I think in hopefully bringing some ideas to you all and spurring some new conversations, perhaps, about how we can use technology to be more effective, to make our work and our lives better. And that's the approach for this talk today. I'd just like to also share the genesis of the talk. Um, so I gave this presentation at the Organization Development Network conference for the first time a couple of weeks ago. And it was held at the university where I studied for my master's degree in positive organization development. And I happened to speak after a couple of my professors, so it felt sort of surreal to be there and to be sharing this. And I had to confess to the conference that I'm not an AI expert. And in fact, when I submitted this proposal for the conference, I had only used Chat GPT. That's it. And I submitted the proposal for the session that I wanted to hear, not that I felt like I was prepared to give. And I was surprised when the session was accepted. And then I realized that I needed to lean into my curiosity and to do some experimentation. So this talk is the result of experimentation. And by all means, please ask questions if you have them, if they come up. Odds are I cannot answer them if they're related to the technology that's at play or they're related to the ethics of AI. I think there's really fantastic questions out there. Please ask them. And I just always like to say, I don't know that I'm the one to answer them, but I'm certainly willing to take a stab. And I think we as a group can kind of mull on some of the questions that arise. So with that, I'll jump in here. And as I said, if you have questions at any point, please feel free to jump in during the presentation. I welcome questions, and it doesn't interrupt my flow by any means. Um, so the title is Enliven Your Design Prototypes with Simple AI Tools. And what we're talking about here is prototyping, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is an essential concept in design thinking. And um, really, we're going to be looking at 9 different tools that are AI tools or AI-powered add-ons to tools we might be familiar with that can help you to do prototyping in order to get more input and more engagement with your design. So here's the general outline. We'll talk a little bit about why you should prototype projects. Again, here this is in an OD context, but it can be extrapolated to other contexts. And then I'll show you how to prototype 7 different designs, types of prototypes. And like I said, I have 9 AI tools that I'll show you. And then we can maybe discuss some other ones that have come up since then as well. And then I'll share some of the resources, and then we can jump into discussion. So first, why is it advantageous to prototype? I love this quote from one of the design directors at IDEO, which is a design and consulting firm based out of California. And Chris really emphasizes that prototyping allows people to orient their conversations toward the thing and not toward one another. So it gives us an opportunity to respond to and interact with and investigate a design without sort of talking to one another. Instead, we can talk about and orient toward that prototype. And I think often we think about prototyping in product design. And in this conversation, I'm really bringing it into the OD space, and then we can talk about different ways that you all might be able to prototype in your work. So, of course, I had to ask AI why we should prototype. It wouldn't be an AI conversation or presentation without asking AI. So I used 2 of the generative AI tools here, large language models, Claude AI and ChatGPT, and they gave some responses to why prototyping is important in organization development work. This kind of summary here of the themes is some of the reasons you want to prototype is to visualize and align the expectations of the project. Prototyping reduces risk with early testing. It facilitates an iterative feedback process. It can accelerate learning and builds client engagement and ownership. So that's really the essence of why what AI says why we should prototype designs. So these are the 9 tools that I'll be talking about today. As I mentioned, these are by no means exhaustive. You might be using some of these already. Some of them might be new to you, and you might have other tools that you use, and I hope that you'll bring those to the conversation later. So first, we're going to talk about prototyping proposals. And again, this is in the organization development context. And for this prototype, I use 2 tools. I use ChatGPT and Canva. And in approaching this conversation, I reached out to a number of my OD colleagues and asked them for projects that they're currently designing. And I used those as examples for these prototypes. So the first example here is for a leadership retreat for a US government department in a host country abroad. And they wanted to use the Olympics as a theme for this leadership retreat. So I fed this prompt into ChatGPT, asking for 8 to 10 examples of activities that could be led for this leadership retreat. And ChatGPT gave me 10 examples of activities that could be done. I responded and said, okay, we'll need something to help with a scoring system. And so ChatGPT responded and gave me a breakdown of a potential scoring system we could use. And these 2 descriptions were quite long. And so I asked ChatGPT to summarize into 2 pages. And it gave me this 2-page summary. And then I took this and plugged it into Canva. I used Canva's AI tool and asked for a template for a leadership retreat that was Olympic themed. And this is the template that it gave me. And I fed the 2-page summary into the 2nd page here. And this is the prototype that I came up with. And total, it took me 15 minutes to do. And I'll just underscore again, this is a prototype, so it's meant to be a first draft. And it's really just a way that I could bring this to the design committee and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Here's some ideas. Can you respond to this? And can we iterate on this design? 15 minutes, I think, is it's quick, as we know, and I think it can get us to that next stage of the iterative process a little bit more quickly. The second type of prototype I want to show you is a timeline for a project. And with this prototype, I used Claude AI. And the prompt here is from one of my OD colleagues who is working with a local church to do an organizational change project that's going to culminate in an Appreciative Inquiry Summit. It's a 12-month project. And so I fed this prompt into Claude and asked if it could suggest a draft timeline for the project. And Claude responded with some key points and follow-up questions for me, and wanted to know if I wanted it to elaborate on any of the activities. And so I fed it another prompt and saying, hey, these are some of the activities that we want to see. And Claude spit this out, which I don't know if you find this useful. I did not find this useful whatsoever. So I responded and said, this isn't legible. Can you make this easy to read? Claude apologized and gave me this. So here we have another prototype of a timeline with all the information I input. That entire process took 3 minutes. So again, this is a prototype I could bring to the church leadership, to the folks who are involved on the project and say, what does this look like? Can we respond to this? The third prototype here is an org chart. So in OD work, we're often looking at organizational redesign. And so here I used Claude as well and asked if it could do an org chart if I included all the key players. And Claude responded and gave me some prompts here. And so I input the positions of the organization. This is a real organization that one of my colleagues is working with. I use the positions and not the names to anonymize it. Described the reporting structure and then mentioned the departments or teams that should be represented and asked for 2 or 3 different structures that could fulfill the request. And Claude gave me these 3 org charts and a rationale for each one of these. I checked through the rationale. It was sound. I looked at the different charts. They all make sense on some level, and they match up with the explanation. So this is, again, a prototype, 3 prototypes I could bring to the organization and say, hey, here are some ideas for us to start to look at in terms of the potential redesign. This process with all the input and the iteration with Claude took me 10 minutes to get to. And I'm giving you the timeline just to underscore how these can be time savers. Often this would take us, I don't know, an hour or 2, maybe more, to get to this place. And I think AI really presents opportunities to get to that space a little bit earlier. And I'm not monitoring the chat. Elise, can you keep an eye on that? And then if there's questions, would you mind just saying them out loud? Awesome. So the next prototype is a process, and I'll show you what I mean by a process. I use Miro for this. Some of you may be familiar with the tool Miro. Miro is like a mind mapping and process mapping tool, and they have an AI add-on that I'm going to show you how to use. So this project, the prompt was from another colleague who is working with a nonprofit organization to create a more equitable compensation structure. And so using Miro, I put the prompt into the space. This is an example of what the workspace looks like. And when you click on the prompt, there is a little star icon here that indicates their AI add-on. And you can use that for a number of different things. But what I did is I used their AI to expand this mind map. And you can expand using their AI with questions, ideas, and topics. So I used the AI to introduce new topics related to creating equitable compensation structures in a nonprofit organization. And I did verify. I looked through all of these suggestions. So you can see here it expanded. It gave me 10 new ideas. And I did verify and I looked, and they seem to be consistent with industry standard best practice. So their AI tool can help you to expand your mind map and look at new and different ways to approach a process. The great thing about Miro too is it is a collaborative tool, so you can invite others from your organization or from the team to join, and you can do this collaboratively in the Miro tool. I did use another AI tool, Perplexity, which is an AI-assisted search engine to look at some of the best practices and cross-referenced here. And I have to say, Miro's AI is pretty good. It seems to be drawing from good sources and looking at some of the industry best practice here. And then what I did is I sort of whittled down some of the ideas, some of the explanations, and this is an example of the process we could use to iterate on as a process prototype. And this took me 15 minutes to get to. So again, something that we can, as a OD practitioner team or as the executive team, we can look at and we can respond to. Next, a lot of the work that we do in organization development is getting stakeholder input. And so for this prototype, I've designed a survey using 2 tools, Perplexity, which I just mentioned before, which is an AI-assisted search engine, and then Mentimeter, which is an engagement tool that I think many of you have seen at presentations and conferences. So Mentimeter has an AI add-on to their software. So for this survey, this project is looking at team effectiveness. And engaging a team to assess where the team is at the outset before we do the team engagement. So I fed it this prompt about composing an employee survey based on this book, Teams That Work, which is sort of a essential reading in the field in terms of team effectiveness, and asked it to compose a survey with no more than 10 questions. And based on that book, it did give me survey questions here. And again, I went back, I've read this book several times. I went back, the questions are consistent with what would be in this work. And then what I did is I took those questions and I went to Mentimeter to create a survey. And I'll invite you all, if you want to go to menti.com and to input this code. This is the prototype of the survey that it created for me. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Menti sometimes has a limit on the number of people that can view a survey for the free plan. So let me know if you have any trouble accessing that. For those who are watching the recording, you might not be able to. Okay, I see thumbs up. Great. So what I did is all that I did is I copied the questions I got from Perplexity and pasted them into Mentimeter's tool, their AI tool, and it said it would create a first draft for me, and this is what it came up with. So you can see, you can interact with the survey. Again, this is the purpose is to get it into people's hands so that they can interact with the survey and we can determine, do we want to change questions? Do we want to change the way that it's organized? And this process took me 5 minutes. So again, very little time, very little effort. You have something in people's hands that they can respond to, they can interact with. And of course, when you actually get to the survey design and delivery portion, you can go into Mentimeter, you can edit, you can change things around, right? This isn't a final design, just a first design. Okay, two more examples of different types of prototypes. So we probably are aware that there are AI image generators out there. Two of them that I've used here are DALL-E, which is OpenAI's image generator that's connected with ChatGPT, and then Microsoft Bing's Copilot. And I'm going to show you kind of the nuances and the differences in each of these image generators. So we're going to go back to that first project for the Olympic-themed leadership retreat. And I'm going to start with DALL-E. And so I asked it to compose images based on that prompt. And DALL-E does one image at a time. So this is the first image I got. If you look closely, you'll notice things consistent with image generation, like missing limbs, misspelled words, right? But the point that I want to show you is that we can iterate with these image generators, right? So that's the first one that it spit out. And so my next prompt, I wanted it to create an image of a collaborative problem-solving challenge. I saw this is more of a physical challenge. If we're thinking about in an office environment, what might be more realistic. So it came up with this as an example of a collaborative problem-solving challenge. You might notice things about the types of what these individuals are wearing, if we think this is a likely scenario for a retreat. So again, I'm iterating here. So I asked it to reflect people dressed in business casual clothing, vary the ages of the participants to reflect more generations, include participants of different ethnic backgrounds and physical abilities. And so again, we can iterate with these tools to get closer to what we want to see. So this is what we came up with based on those prompts. So that's DALL-E. And I'll show you Microsoft Bing. You can see some differences here. So I gave it the same prompts that I did starting with DALL-E. And Copilot will give you 4 images at once. and you can choose one and you can iterate on that image. So these are the 4 images it spit out, very different than the Dolly images. And so I believe I selected the one in the top left to iterate on and said, I like this one the best. Can you make the setting a conference room, include more detail on the individuals participating in the events? And it will give you more images. It gave me 3 here. And again, you can continue to select and iterate. And I don't have my follow-up prompts to this, but here's a few more examples of iterations. So you can, again, get a little bit closer to what you're looking for. Some of these are kind of wild. So again, you can select and then try to hone in on more of what you'd like to see. Each of this process for each of these tools took me 5 minutes each. And then I went back to that proposal, and instead of using the stock photos that Canva gave me, I input these images into the leadership retreat proposal. So again, you can kind of personalize things a little bit more that way. Okay, this is the last one I'm going to demonstrate is a prototype of a video, and this is using software called Lumen 5. And I think this is, to me, this is the most impressive one of the ones that I'm showing you. So I am, as I mentioned, I'm an OD consultant and a leadership coach, and I have a leadership coaching cohort that I lead. And I have a landing page for this cohort. So when people are interested in coaching, I can send them the link. They go to the landing page, get more information, and they can sign up for a call, a discovery call with me. So when you go to Lumen 5, this is a free account, by the way. It gives you these options for creating a video. The video can be either text on media, it can be an AI voiceover video, an AI avatar where they actually have an individual avatar that will speak, and you can do a voiceover or a talking head video. For this example, I'm going to show you the AI voiceover feature. I tried the AI avatar. It was not very impressive. They've got some work to do as they're beta testing. But this AI voiceover, I think, is pretty impressive. So the way you add content to create a video is you can outline the idea here. You can copy and paste some text from a document or from, whatever, an outline that you already have. Or you can upload a document or you can import a URL. So what I did for my coaching program is I copied and pasted the URL from my landing page. So you click here and then upload it. And Lumen 5, within 45 seconds, generated a script and a video that I'll show you here. And this is with no editing from me whatsoever. This is just what Lumen 5 spit out. And I hope you can hear the audio with this.
Are you a higher education or nonprofit director aiming to inspire your team, boost engagement, and lead inclusive change? The Impact Leadership Coaching Circle is designed just for you. This 12-week program offers 6 hours of individual coaching and 9 hours of group coaching. You'll receive a custom curriculum based on cutting-edge research, real-time feedback, and all the tools you need for personal transformation. It's a journey to avoid burnout and sustain your positive impact. The curriculum includes modules on strengths-focused leadership, emotional intelligence, leading positive change, essential management habits, unlocking diverse team power, and sustaining leadership impact. It's grounded in management science, positive psychology, and neuroscience. Laura Dean from Louisiana State University said, "John helped me recognize my leadership style and hone my skills." Christy Eilar from Colorado State University noted, "Our team dynamic has become stronger and more positive." Rebecca Schaffer from Texas AANDM University shared, "I've grown in confidence as a leader." John Hildebrand, a professional leadership coach, has 15 years in education and 8 in international higher education. With a master's in positive organization development, he's dedicated to helping leaders unlock their full potential. Are you a higher education or non?
Okay, that entire process to get to this point took me 2 minutes. And I think we can obviously see that it's not perfect. I wouldn't send this to someone as a marketing video, right? But again, this is getting us to a place where we can put a design in front of someone in a different way, in a different medium, and say, "Hey, can you respond to this? Can we get feedback on this? Can we ideate on this?" By the way, you can go into Lumen 5 and you can change the script, you can change the music, you can change the clips, the video clips, and their free plan allows you to do videos under 2 minutes. To my knowledge, I think it's unlimited. I don't know if I haven't reached the limit yet, but anything under 2 minutes is free, and you can edit it. So again, just a different way to get a design in front of someone to get and inspire a different kind of interaction and feedback. So those are the prototypes I've come up with. And even since the talk, so I gave this session 2 weeks ago, I've learned about other AI tools. One of them that I think is very cool is Gamma, which is a presentation creation tool that I've been kind of playing with a little bit in the past couple of weeks. These are the resources. These are where I found these tools and where you can find them as well. I'll mention the last link here. Future Tools is a directory of AI tools that I found that you can search. You can look for specific types of tools. You can select a box that says free if you want just free tools. And I found that to be really useful in my discovery process and looking for different tools that are available. So I'd love to just say before we get into discussion, I'd love to connect with other innovators, other people that are in different lines of work. If you are eager to partner with someone, if you like what you saw here and you want someone who has an OD perspective or leadership coaching perspective on something, please connect with me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can send me an email here. I have a mailing list too that I'll drop the link to in the chat here. But I'd love to connect and just discuss ideas that you have in different applications for some of these tools. And I'm excited to jump into conversation around this too.
Sweet. That was super fun. These are fun examples. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Um, all right. So we're not a huge group. So I'm curious first if anybody has some questions for John.
Not a
Mom?
question, but just thank you so much, John. That was incredible. Like so much packed into a really short period of time. That was amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. And I'll mention one more thing before I take the next question or thought. Is my goal behind this session was to try to make the next step into using AI a little easier, a little less daunting for people. As I mentioned, the only tool I'd used before I did this session was ChatGPT, and I think when I polled the audience in the conference, 90% of the people in there had only used ChatGPT or not used AI. And so trying to make the next step into using AI a little bit less daunting, and that's my hope for this, so that maybe there's some new ideas or curiosity around some of these additional tools.
That was an AI OD conference, right?
It was, yeah. It was the theme of the conference was artificial intelligence, but OD practitioners, many of them tend not to be on the leading edge of adopting technology. So that was the hope, I think, for the conference and for the presentation.
Mark.
Yeah, that was one of the, I've been on 50 of these webinars on all kinds of stuff, and I'm using Perplexity because I like using Google search. Perplexity for me does a bazillion things well. But what I really like, John, is that you presented some stuff that creates fear in the hearts of most general observers. They hear about Claude or something, and they just and that was simple, was nice, very well done. I think it opens the doors, which is your desired outcome, is to get people to go out and play. And
Exactly.
there's so much stuff out there, and every week there's new stuff out there. Crazy.
I like that you said play too, because I think it can be fun. I had a great time with this. And I think trying to reduce the fear, as you mentioned, around it and find ways to do good work with some of these tools and to have fun while you do it. Thanks, Scott.
So, John, I'll add to the prior kudos. The way you packaged this uh, really brought home the the benefits, which in many places I've seen you hear a lot of the hype, but I appreciate the very practical nature you brought to this. As somebody who tuned into a lot of the AI hype early on this year, and then decided I've got to run a business, I can't keep up with all this. I'm curious how long it took you to learn to use some of these different tools, because that's also key is how do you do the prompts, what special filters or features are in each of these tools, and that can be overwhelming as well.
Yeah, such a good question. I would say it depends on the tool. I'll preface this. I'll say I am not a prompt expert. You can see by some of the ways I was prompting these tools. There's probably much better ways to do that. Um, I would say the probably total for these 9 tools, it took me a total of 3 hours to feel really
Okay.
comfortable using each of them. That's cumulative. Um, and that's to the point where I feel like I could speak to them somewhat intelligently in front of a group.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really approached each one of these individually and just said, let me just jump in and try something. So I feel like I was learning on the fly, and what I did is I just practiced. I all of the accounts I have here were free accounts, except for
Mhm.
Canva. I have a paid account for Canva. But the other tools it's all free. I just signed up and started playing with things. And I found pretty quickly that I got to the point where I could create something pretty fast. But I'd say total of 2 to 3 hours of learning.
Yeah. So you surprised me because as a paid user of Claude, I hadn't even realized about the diagram capability. So I'm constantly having to use my queries to say, okay, how can I use you better? Because I feel like you're changing so fast.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I love what you said is ask, like what I did is I asked it, can you make
Yes.
org charts? I didn't
Hmm.
know. I made my naivete was on display, right? I
Yeah.
just asked, can you do it? You notice the first timeline was really bad. It wasn't,
Yeah.
couldn't use it. And then I asked, can you make this better? And it
Yeah.
could. So I
But
think,
but for your but for your purposes of generating prototypes, not some finished, polished end product, I mean, that was wonderful framing too.
great. Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. Um, One, did you take any of the prototypes to a final product? And what did that end up looking like and feeling like, and what was better about it, what wasn't? That's a
Yeah.
question.
Great question. Not yet, but the organizational redesign, I shared those prototypes with my friend who's on that project, and she is using those. So we'll see what comes of that project. But she said it was very helpful to get conversation going. The coaching program, I'm currently marketing that program, so I'm going to be using that video. I just haven't had time to edit it, and I actually would like to use it as a marketing tool. So that's in the works. Uh, I don't think any of the others. I've shared some of the design for the proposal with my colleagues who shared that project with me. I haven't heard back yet. So it's still new, but I do hope that um, they become something real and that they help in the process.
Okay, cool. And like on the proposal, I wonder if Canva's AI image generator doesn't have quite so many awesome Captain Dans in it. Although I
Yeah,
do like your Captain Dan at the team retreat. It was
yeah,
funny.
he really stuck out there with the bandana.
Willie Nelson, man. Um, uh, so my second question is just a practice question about premature entrainment or attachment, right? Like there's, the thing when we prototype, when we do it with our hands and our paper, is we're still thinking more deeply about everything we put on the paper. And here you got 20 ideas, but maybe they're all going to be fairly predictable ideas because that's what AI does. Have you found strategies or have you seen that influence your thinking?
Hmm.
How are you thinking about that? Or are you? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I really try to take this piece of advice I got from a design thinking course I took, which is prototype early and often, as early as possible to get something out there. And I think like as I'm thinking about these tools, I'm thinking about how they can help me to get to that point sooner and with less of my investment of time and energy and sort of dedication to the way that things are manifesting in my mind. So I am thinking about it and I'm noticing that I think when I can use these tools and not invest that kind of energy up front and then use that kind of investment and energy in the actual conversations around the prototype, I'm finding that yeah, I find that it feels like a better investment of my time and energy, and because we're narrowing in on something at that point rather than me making assumptions about what the design is going to look like and really investing in that part of the process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just, I think it's an interesting challenge because whatever you put out first frames what happens next, right? We iterate off of the prototype we're shown, not the prototypes we aren't shown.
Correct.
Um, so, it's an interesting challenge.
I love that. I love that question too. And then I think that begs the question then is this one of several prototypes that you can bring forth? And
Mhm.
if you're using generative AI for one, is there a process you can go through to counterbalance what as you said is predictable with something that maybe is you have a different process and that you're able to kind of compare and interact with different prototypes. That's a great question.
Or maybe you just tell it to give you five radically different things,
Yeah.
or what?
Yep.
Scott.
Yeah, I'm in a kind of funny place now, I think. I've been blogging for 20 years about my stuff. So AI knows a lot about my stuff, almost more than me at this point. Um, it gives better responses immediately than I think I could generate in an hour sitting at a keyboard. So I'm in this paradox now where I'm letting AI do all my thinking. I'm asking good questions, but I'm becoming, in a way, intellectually lazy. And I just wonder about the long-term effects of that. I mean, okay, if I'm going to go take a course on something or other, and I'm going to ask Perplexity different things about that, and it's getting confusing to me. And I imagine it's common. We're deferring to the AI. We're letting the robots make our decisions. Yeah, Skynet.
I have the same thought so often. And the question I ask is how can we ensure that we don't cede all of our thought power and our generative power to AI? And I don't know. I mean, I think that's an important question to hold.
Related to that is that the old Daniel Kahneman work, Thinking Fast and Slow, he basically reached the point where he said senior level executives don't make group decisions and they don't want to, and you can't get them to. And I'm seeing AI. Oracle did a study and found 74% of senior level managers would rather a robot answer their questions. And we're seeing that. How are we going to get groups of people to use AI to actually collaborate? Or is that just wishful thinking for the future? I don't know. Me and my machine, you know?
Well,
Robin.
and I'll say that that is a question that the field of organization development is focused on.
Yes.
That was a central question at the conference. We had breakout track sessions in the afternoons, and ethical, responsible use of AI was one of them. And I think that is tangential to the ethical and responsibility question: is how do we use it to enhance what we're doing and how we're living and how we're working?
Robin.
Hi. Yeah, thinking about these ideas, I've thought about it some as well. And I think of it like, when you bring a consultant in, which may be one of us, and if we were to come in to a group and we say, oh, we have all the answers, or we think we do, here's some great ideas. And then the group might go, oh, wow, those are great ideas. Okay, yep, let's use that for ourselves. But they have no skin in the game. Then really quickly, those are going to go by the wayside. That actually was one of the things that led me to facilitation, because I realized when I included people in designing and developing their answers, then it lasted a whole lot longer, what they ended up using, because it was part of them. And so when I've used AI with groups recently, what I try to do is have the group think through first. So for instance, there was a board I was working with, and they were needing to develop a vision statement, which, most people are like, okay, gag me because I can't stand doing this, but I said, hey, let's just like kind of the 80-20 rule, get down what you think are the main points. Now let's feed that into AI, the things that you guys have said, and see what it comes up with, and give us 3 or 4, wordsmithing, so we don't do the wordsmithing. And suddenly they all came together and they're like, oh yeah, okay, let's take this phrase and that phrase, da 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 da. And so they owned the whole thing with AI mixed into it. So for me, that's how I'm approaching it, at least for now.
I love that. Such a good example, right, of how you can use the tool to enhance what the group is doing, and making sure that it's not replacing, because as you said, that's not it's there's not going to be the buy-in, and there's not going to be the investment,
Yeah,
right?
it won't have the staying power.
Yeah.
Jim. You're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. I just want to mention, but first of all, John, enjoyed the presentation. Don't change a thing. And I think the recording is going to be very worthwhile. I think it should be shown to a lot of people. That's number one. Number two, I want to mention something about what Scott talked about laziness. And I think there's another level that's concerning me. Take somebody like you, John. You've developed your skills without AI. You had to sit there and think a lot on your own. But what about the next generation that comes along, and these are going to be their introductory tools? Will they have the skills to do that kind of thinking? And that is a concern to me. I just start to use it, and I already feel lazy in my thinking. And it kind of scares me, quite frankly.
Related to that is the teaching community's reaction to AI. I mean, early on, they didn't want their students to use AI. It was cheating. Well, okay, but the workplace of the future is going to use AI. Don't we want to prepare the students to use AI? And the ethics and the chaos and the whose data is it? What's that comedy? Whose line is it? Whose data is it? Perplexity's getting sued by what, the New York Post, for scraping all of their stuff. Well, yeah, hello. I said it on a session about copyright, and that's interesting because that's going to all change. Crazy.
So on this front, one of the AI conferences I went to was with some people who are in those big companies driving some of the models and whatnot. And this question came up about the quality of our ability to think and contribute and invent. And one of the takes was that, maybe we need to, I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying this is one of the takes, release some of that. Because, while some of us are brilliant, many of us really aren't. And the quality, if you look at our culture, maybe the quality of our thinking hasn't exactly led us to brilliant places. And perhaps with some of that gone, we might focus our time and energy on connecting in deeply human ways and doing
Yeah,
the things where we get to be together in community, um, and relearn how to love, right?
yeah, good
Uh,
luck. I hope. But I walk into a room at Thanksgiving and 19 people are sitting there, each one focused on their own telephone. And they're playing Candy Crush or whatever they're doing. And it's like, no, chat is not
you
helping
need
us.
better
So.
rules at your Thanksgiving. Come on, facilitate that stuff, Scott. You know better than that.
Yeah, you want to
Here's
confiscate
Scott's
their phones
challenge for
when they
this
walk
year.
in, you know, physically take them from their phone, like schools, take the
Yeah.
phone away altogether. Yeah, I like that. It works for me.
Nick, Nick, did you have anything that you wanted to add? We haven't heard from you yet, and if so, we'd love to. Otherwise, I think we're getting close. It's Nick's fabulous tree.
Sorry, I'm manipulating things and all sorts. Oh, what to add after all of that? Really useful, thank you, especially seeing the range. The I really like this. I really like AI for prototyping and for deciding what not to do. Like, like partly, and with the greatest respect, like part of the stuff you generated was quite standard, which I think is an advantage or a disadvantage. It might be you want something that makes sense to everyone. So when they look at it, they immediately know what you're doing. They immediately know what to expect, and that's a good thing. Or this looks like what everybody else is doing. It's using the same kind of imagery of what everybody else is doing. As Elise pointed out, that that's kind of what AI does. And like, I'd be interested to see if you asked all these LLMs like five radically different ideas, whether they were five radically different ideas or just sort of what an LLM thinks is radical. But I really like it for prototyping, for just getting started, rather than everybody sort of sits at a blank page and wonders where to begin. Even if sort of you look at this and go like you said, like why does that person have no legs and that person has one 6 foot long leg? Why that person in the bandana is ridiculously distinctive for this quite general image we want, that kind of thing. But it gets people thinking, it gets people started, and it gets everybody, as was I think you said at the beginning of the presentation, it gets everybody looking at the thing rather than sort of talking to each other or thinking about each other's requirements. So I mean, the only thing is just sort of, as you can tell off the top of my head, is interesting. Give me lots to think about. Give me some stuff to check out as well, and the range of stuff and using it together, I thought was really interesting.
Fantastic. What I'm taking away is the question you asked is what I want to do is experiment and ask about radically different concepts, designs, see if it can do that. I'm curious.
I mean, like someone was just saying, like, I can only ask it the questions. Is I think a lot of skill of consultancy in the widest possible meaning of the term is asking the right questions. Um, so rather than it's seen as having access to knowledge or having the right answers quickly, this use of LLMs might make that useful in that sort of your ability to force it into new ideas might give us a more human way of interacting with each other and customers on ideas rather than here's something fairly standard that we think you'll pay for. It's, you know, a much more interactive process. But well, like you said, it's experiment, it's try, it's see what they're capable of, and especially try and push them to limits rather than, I think we're getting over the technically impressive side, and it's more about what's the content, what can we do with this, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love what I heard is, I think what I was thinking about is how can it enhance the process, right? Not necessarily looking at just shortcutting to the product, because as Robin mentioned, there's not going to be no buy-in there, and these are fairly standard, right? Like, but can this in prototyping, can it help the process? And I think it can. And I'm curious to explore more ways in which it can help to enhance the process that enhances then the outcome as well.
One more thing, seeing as Elise rattled my cage in the best possible way, is you've gone with an Olympic themed event. The Olympic organization is notorious for copyright protection and enforcement in like the widest meaning of whatever copyright means. Did at any point, did any LLM warn you about that contextual issue, about the legal issues of using Olympic imagery?
Never. No.
Yeah, context is really interesting in a frightening way for things like LLMs, in that I think what you've illustrated really well is that the LLMs are really useful for getting something out, and seeing where we as people can fit into the use of them in that process is up for discussion. There's not an obvious way, and especially like you were just saying, it's not a quick way to turn an idea into a thing. It's a benefit to the process, and maybe makes it faster, but it's not as though I want this course done, I've just used the right prompt and it exists. There's much more interaction required, and there's much more effort required from us, I think. And yeah, just thank you. I'll undoubtedly be in touch. There's a lot of tools to play with there.
Please do. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks everyone for your engagement. It's such a fascinating topic. And again, my hope was that this topic can kind of create new insights and new ideas and new conversations. And it's already I'm taking away a lot from just this conversation afterwards.
Well, and speaking of what happens next, again, if you didn't open it before, please open the feedback thing, and we'll give John some more feedback. And then in the future, the recording will be posted in the community, along with the recording from the session that Nick did last week, which inspired me to rewrite how I'm going to teach one of my models at an upcoming session at Harvard, based on incorporating some of his gaming ideas that I took from Nick and used ChatGPT to help me prototype how we tell the stories and the scenarios. So, you know, hooray, circles of abundance right in this Zoom window. So those will both be up within the next week or so, and then we hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, John, Elise. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Look at that. That's so many thumbs up. Oh my gosh.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.